All right. Bueno, gente, muy buenas tardes. Estamos en un jueves de rest y estamos en una nueva edición de Fitness Talks con mi amigo Nicolás de la Vega y esta vez con un invitado especialísimo.
Un lujazo,
David,
un
un
lujazo.
lujazo. David Hippensteel está hoy con nosotros. A partir de este momento vamos a cambiar a inglés. Esta entrevista va a estar en YouTube y van a poder tener la traducción en español haciendo clic en la ruedita, seleccionando traducción y poniendo el idioma español. So now, David, we are in English. We have
Okay.
presented our program. Hello, and thank you very much for being here with us.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. I love talking CrossFit. I love crossing these geographic boundaries. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Always good to do it.
thank you so much, David. As we talked early, we are also master athletes, so you have been a big inspiration for us and for all the master community. You are all the north for us. So it's really
100%.
a pleasure to have you. So thank
Hey,
you.
we are talking about a 9 times CrossFit Game athlete, uh, 3 times CrossFit Game champion, plus one Master Fitness Collective in 2020. And you have been doing CrossFit since when?
So I started about 10 years ago. So probably around 2012, my daughter gave me a phone call and said, "Dad, you're going to love this new sport." And I was probably, I think I would have been 56 at the time. So like just 10 years ago, 2012. And uh, came around and got to do the open in 2012. Kind of stumbled through that. Never didn't really know anything about double unders or anything like that. Could do muscle ups, but but I got to that in that one in that year. And then in 2013, I was ready for it and ended up winning that open that year. So
That's
Okay,
amazing. So,
what is your sport background, David?
yeah, so good question. I played football in college, or I'm in football a little bit in college, and but played football and did track and a little bit of basketball in high school, and then in college I did decathlon. And then once I got out of college, got to dental school. After dental school, I did triathlons for about off and on for about 20 years. And then
whoa.
actually I raced motocross too when I turned 40, and I needed a break from triathlon. I needed a new sport, and so that was
So,
something I always wanted to do, and fell in love with it and raced for about 5 years. So anyway, yeah. So that's kind
awesome.
of my
So
background.
you knew muscle ups before starting CrossFit.
Somehow it's I don't know if it just runs in our family because all my kids can do it, and I didn't really. The
It's in the
first time I
blood.
tried it at the CrossFit gym, I could do one, and I think it was a strict one. And I think I remember. So back in, it wasn't a big thing. Way back in high school, it wasn't a big thing to do gymnastics, but we dabbled in it a little bit in gym class. So I was always had a knack for that kind of thing, especially pull ups. I could always do a ton of pull ups, and so I don't remember specifically doing muscle ups then, but I just remember doing it in the CrossFit gym, and it just kind of came natural, which is kind of wild.
Wow,
Yeah.
lucky guy.
Yeah.
I can see. I can see. So you said you started CrossFit at almost 55-year old,
Yeah,
54
right.
actually, right? So how was that? You were coming. It is evident that you are having a great background in sports. You have been in sports your whole life.
Yeah.
So how different CrossFit is for you? I mean,
Yeah.
it is something completely different to the rest of the things, right?
Yeah, it does have its own uniqueness in terms of, with if you compare it to triathlon or even motocross, those very specific sports, triathlon especially more just endurance. But I always loved lifting weights and I loved acrobatic stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so when CrossFit came around and it's like, wow, I got to do weightlifting. I got to do, weightlifting on a timer. So it's kind of I tell people like, well, CrossFit is kind of like doing a 10K, only you're in the gym and you're racing and you start the clock. And so being able to do CrossFit and jump into it and then be challenged with all these different movements was kind of a match, a really a good match for me because I've always been versatile. I guess that's one of my strengths is I can do a lot of things pretty good. So, and I'm naturally strong also. So man, I just like gravitated to it like bees to honey, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
I
Hey,
see.
Yeah.
how is the day in your life about, I mean, training, nutrition, recovery, the balance between your
Yeah.
job and your training? How is
Yeah.
a day in your life?
Yeah, good, very good question. So when I first started CrossFit, there was a couple of guys at the gym that were really, really fit. One was one of the owners, and the other was a good friend of his. And they told me what they had for breakfast, and they said they did paleo. It's like I had never heard of paleo. I was always like nutrition focused, like all throughout my 20s. Like people call me a health nut because I was into eating well and not eating bad stuff. And so when I started the CrossFit. Never heard of paleo. They were eating eggs on a bed, like 4 eggs on a bed of spinach every morning for breakfast. So it's like, okay, let me try that. And so I just overnight I switched to the paleo diet, and I became like 95% paleo overnight. It was just like again, it was just like perfect for me. And and so for a year I did eggs and spinach, and then I was out of eggs one day, and we had steak or roast beef in the refrigerator, so I put that on my bed of spinach, and I switched to that, and all of a sudden that became even better for me for my digestion and everything like that, nutritionally. Uh, that just seemed to be what worked for me. So I've kept that ever since. And so every morning I have roast beef and spinach and avocado for breakfast.
Oh,
Wow.
delicious.
So
And I sometimes, so I have 2 dental offices, and I work in my dental office, and I don't want any more decisions. There's a lot of decisions you have to make because I have 2 offices. I have about 20 employees, including like 4 associates that work for me. And so I don't want any more decisions. So I usually eat my breakfast, roast beef and spinach and avocado. Same thing for lunch. And then at dinner time, I'll branch out into a bunch of vegetables like asparagus, especially, and broccoli because they're nutrient dense. So I try and really stick with those and focus on those foods that are nutrient dense and that are good for you. And then,
so yeah,
so yeah,
you know the story that Steve Jobs said that he always wear the same T-shirt,
yeah,
which is a black one,
that's
just
right.
because he has probably tons of them,
Yeah,
just because
yeah,
he doesn't want to take any other decision other
yeah,
than the
that's
hundreds of
right.
them that he should be taking, right? So
Life
always
is
the
just
same.
too
I
much.
don't have to decide this,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
So
And I
hey,
knew it
so
was
you
good.
like? Yeah,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
knew it was good for me. So I just like, I'm going to stick with that. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
so you like
Okay.
meat. You like a lot
I
meat, as
do.
I can see.
Yeah, red meat.
Uh,
We buy grass-fed beef here. We live in Tennessee.
yeah.
So usually somewhere in Tennessee we get grass-fed beef. Most of the time we go up to Kentucky and get grass-fed beef there. So we buy a half a
Have you
cow.
ever have you
So
ever been here to Argentina?
no, I want to be there. I want to come visit.
Oh, okay.
You should come and eat meat here.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh my goodness.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It is supposed to be really good.
And you have probably good, so do you guys know Batuk, who was my
Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
we were coming to this question. We will talk about
Okay,
Batuk.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so I've been
I
talking
know
to
you know
him.
it too.
And
Yeah.
probably Batu told you about the real good meat that we have here.
That's what I'm thinking because I might have asked him about like, do you have good watermelon and avocado and like good fruit, peaches, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
'Cause-
So, but Batuk he's a guy here, talking
yeah,
about CrossFit. He almost started CrossFit in Argentina.
really, yeah,
He was one of the first guys starting CrossFit. He has a
yeah,
gym in a
yeah,
place called Mar del Plata, and we get to know what he did for you guys in these last CrossFit Games. So
yeah.
we will talk about that in a while.
Oh,
But
okay, yeah,
tell us now how much importance you give, because uh, over the years I can imagine that your fitness changes, and as you're becoming older, maybe also your recovery have to change and your training also had to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Like the balance between how heavy you go, or how much intense you go,
Yep.
or like
Yep.
how much this changed in these 10
Yeah.
to 12 years
So
at
over the 10 years, and anybody that knows me knows that like there's no limits there's no limits in terms of my intensity. Like when I do something, I just go for it. Like when I race motocross, I had a 90-foot jump in my backyard within like a year or two of racing dirt bikes, and I'd hit that 90-foot jump routinely. There's just like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it full on. And
Me too. I'm the
yeah,
same.
are you? Yeah, Nicholas. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so I got into it. My daughter was training at Invictus at the time. She actually got on the team. She was on the team for 4 years at Invictus, including the year they won in 2014. And she just started introducing me to their programming. So and I went out and I met CJ and I met Tino and just started using their programming and talking to them about stuff. And I just like threw myself into that. Like it was way over my head, but I just learned from that. And fortunately, I didn't get any irreversible injuries. I'd get injured, but it wasn't severe, and it was something I could recover from. Hurt wrists, shoulder tweaks, stuff like that, back, that kind of thing. So, my body's been pretty resilient because I've kept it in good condition and I eat right. I do try and recover. But I do spend more time recovering now than I did back then.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, yeah, just did everything and, just full on. And then, and the crazy thing is, and this I would not recommend. And then this is the most drastic thing I've changed, is that I did not give myself a break after the games. Like I think when I came back from the games after 2013, Nancy was my weakness because I couldn't do my mobility limited me from doing overhead squats. I'd never really done Nancy before. And so that was my biggest downfall in those games. It was my first games, so I ended up with a 5th place. And so I was pretty happy with that. But I came back and I never really rested. I just jumped right back into training. Maybe I took a couple of days off, maybe a week max, and got right back into training and full on intensity all year round. Got ready for 2014. Same thing after 14 and probably after 15. And then 2016 when I won, maybe I took 2 weeks off then. and so, but it was working for me and I wasn't worn out yet. And my body, I guess because I was treating it right over the years, and maybe naturally some, genetically, I'm sure that's a factor. I just didn't need a lot of recovery. But over the last 3 years, I ended up so I won 2016, 17, 18, and then 19 is when I hurt my back like 2 weeks before. And of course, that was the year too that I got invited to do Ninja Warrior. I did a submission video and there's like 100,000 applicants and only like 100 get accepted. And I got accepted to do Ninja Warrior. So it's like, I can't turn this down. So
Why not?
Ninja Warrior, I qualified for games in May because I asked them, I said, well, they wanted me to do it in March, I think it was in Atlanta. And I said, no, I can't do that. Is there any way I can do it? And they never do this, but I asked them, I said, I'm in the CrossFit Games. I want to qualify again. Can I change to May? And so they let me change. And so I qualified with the quarterfinals, I think it was that year in 2019. And then I went up and did Ninja Warrior. And then and I sprained my calf. And then about a month later, I hurt my back like 2 weeks before the games. So I still went through the games. Another characteristic of me, I couldn't turn it off. And I should have rested, but I ended up, but to answer your question, after that, I kind of like was waking up to the fact that, my body might need to rest a little bit. Although in 2020, in the Masters Fitness Collective, I think because I had a forced rest, right, from the back injury, I had to rest for about a month because I couldn't do anything other than bike and swim. And that was the year, if you remember, it's pretty crazy, but they had the Open for the first time ever in October.
In October, two a year, February and October, I guess.
Yeah. So I was not in shape. I was just coming off my back injury, thinking that I was done. Like I was starting to write a book. Like I'm gonna have to write a book because I can't work out. And, but lo and behold, I got better, and just in time for the Open. I wasn't in real good shape, but, I got through the Open and qualified for the next round. But I think that month of having a break, my body was able to recover. And I think about it like in terms of maybe on a cellular level, metabolically, like there's recovery that needs to happen. When you put your body through what we put it through during the games, you really need more of a recovery time than I was giving it. And so that's why I think when I came back for Masters Fitness Collective, I had one of the best performances of my career at Masters Fitness. It was 9 events. I don't know if you remember this. You probably do. It was 9 events over 4 days. Even CrossFit's never, I don't think we've ever done that. We may have dabbled in that maybe in 2019. I can't remember, but it was 9 events, and they were grueling events. It was programmed by CJ, from Invictus. And it was crazy. But I mean, I had one of the best, competitions that I've had in my career. And so I was really happy to come back and be able to do that. But I think that was the recovery that I needed. And then I didn't give myself recovery time, started getting ready for Legends. And that's when I tore my meniscus in my knee. So that took me out for that. And then that injury continued into the next year. And that's kind of what I've been struggling with the last 2 years, 3, even this year. My knees have become kind of an issue. So I'm brainstorming and, getting to see physicians and docs and trying to figure out what I can do for my knees. I mean, I got through the games, and even Helen went really well. And I guess we'll talk about my injury, but that's to basically answer your question. The recovery time has been increasing. And this year I'm actually going to rest. So last year I was kind of forced to rest all of December last year. I did Masters Fitness and tweaked my back during that competition. And then I ended up not doing Legends. And then I ended up like, you know what, I just need to rest, and maybe I'll never come back. And I just have to let it go and just rest and see what happens. And I was able to come back. January, I started training again for the Open after a good month off, maybe a month and a week or so into January. Started training and came back, got second in the Open, and just continued from there. So this year, for the first time, I'm going to take like 3 months off.
Okay.
Of CrossFit.
So when you talk about recovery,
Yes.
I'm just only listening, like resting, like having some time off. But
Yeah.
is there anything else? Like I can imagine PT. I can imagine, for example, ice bath or like cupping. Like I mean, what is your
for sure,
your methods for recovery?
Maybe to even dive in that a little deeper. Like I'm sponsored by Wild Health, which is like my medical doctor. Like Julie Fouché is my medical doctor, and then I also have a health coach through them. And so they pretty much keep me. So we're doing blood testing all the time to test my nutrition. Also sponsored by Inside Tracker, which has been testing me since 2017. So that was my introduction into like, wow, this is great. Like I can make sure that my nutrition is dialed in by checking my blood. Because it's one thing to like think like, okay, well, I'm going to change my diet and I'm going to do this. It's another thing to actually analyze that through your biomarkers to see if your nutrition is really working for you. And so that has been hugely educational. Like I said, Inside Tracker started with me in around 2017 after I won my second gold, or right around that time, maybe before that, actually. Ben Bergeron actually connected me with them. And then the last couple of years I've been with Julie Fouché and Wild Health. And so I have a health coach along with Julie. And so we're able to analyze whatever tests they want me to do, whether it's blood tests, genetic analysis, the DNA, all those, analyzing your snippets, really go into deep dive into Wild Health to make sure, hey, how's my heart? How's my, triglycerides? How's my vitamin D level? How's my testosterone? How's my cortisol? All those things are super important because, and like the other, in terms of recovery, when you're looking at your HSCRP, which is your total body inflammation, you want to analyze that to make sure you're not overtrained.
Yeah,
And
we,
so
we all we all have it high because we train a lot, but
that's right.
it's not
Yes.
good to have it too high, right?
Yeah, that's right. And characteristically, you should be able to, like, even if it is higher, if you give yourself a day or two, your body, like mine has always been able to recover. Like whatever inflammation I have, if I happen to get it after a hard workout, yeah, it's going to be a little bit high, but it always, if I usually try and get it tested, draw blood like 2 days or 3 days after intense workout, especially not the day after, like give myself a rest day. And that way I can tell, is my inflammation staying under control? And so typically it has. So that has been some great guidelines
Yeah,
to
I see.
follow. And then
That's
of course
super
I
interesting.
do have the
What
weekly as well.
Oh, that is giving you a lot of
Yeah,
information
KPIs
about you?
and
Yes,
yeah,
measured information and everything to follow,
yep,
right?
yep,
yes.
exactly. Especially monitoring my sleep, because I'm not, believe it or not, I'm not a great sleeper.
All right.
And so I've ended up the last several years, I've actually worked naps into my recovery schedule.
Mm.
So I end up taking naps almost daily. It used to be just on weekends. Now it's almost daily. And I'm able to, and so I monitor my sleep. It's like, wow, this is really helping my recovery. So anyway, so I think
Yes,
those are
Awesome.
here
the biggest things.
with Guillermo here we are two very freaky guys
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
information that the smartwatch is giving us.
Wearables.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah. I mean, it's
Dave.
there. You might as well use it. I mean, it's,
Hey,
Yes, yes, yes.
hey, we are all taking
While
notes. We are all taking
yes,
notes because we are going there, you know.
yeah.
We are
Yep.
we are approaching that time when we need to pay more and more attention to
Yeah.
recovery and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
yes.
So
That's
it's
right.
While
very
we are talking, Dave, I'm thinking about the. It's not easy to think, or we have to think about the two ways that we have when we are in fitness. I mean, we have two ways: the fitness for competition or the fitness for health and longevity. And how do you manage that balance or that
Yes.
mix?
That is the most important question, I think, because that is exactly what, like, I'm discussing with Wild Health. Like I did a podcast with them earlier this year, and that's one of the things that we talked about. And the distinction that I made, because you guys don't have, maybe, well, I think we all have to worry about it. Me more so because of my age. But I made the distinction between metabolic longevity and orthopedic longevity. And these might not be 100% accurate, but it gives you an idea of, like, there's orthopedic longevity in terms of how many squats is too many over 10 years, how many, overhead squats, whether it's or air squats or front squats, heavy front squats, things like that. How many is too many for your orthopedic longevity before you're like chipping away at it. And that was the big thing for me in like 22. Like when I started I turned 66 that year. And for the first time, I'm thinking, I've got some limitations here. I mean, it's like I'm realizing, like, is it my age, or am I overdoing it at my age? Or has it just been too many years without enough recovery? So I really had to back, because I was in pain pretty much all the time, whether it was my back or my knees. I
okay.
kind of recovered from my medial meniscus tear, but 22 was just a year of injuries. And so kind of forced to take, uh, you know, uh, data on everything, and sized everything up, and realized, like, I just pretty much have to rest and see what happens. And that's why I was excited that that in December, when I took off a month, that I was like, wow, my knees actually are recovering more than they ever have. And then, of course, as the season went on, they started to hurt again, and they're really they've been pretty bad since the games. But I'm exploring that. But that's the biggest question. The metabolic longevity is easy to monitor because of your biomarkers. So you get your blood test, you're in touch with a physician and a health coach. You're able to keep that part of your longevity dialed in, hopefully, keeping your inflammation down, keeping your cortisol level down, all those things, keeping your other biomarkers, your nutritional biomarkers in line. That's all super important. But it's the orthopedic longevity that I think we really have to start diving into. And I think CrossFit needs to, and I think they are starting to. I've had conversations with Chris Hinshaw specifically about this in asking that question, like, what do we do about this? How do we keep away from the A word? We don't want to say that word that begins with an A, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
as I can see, you're not alone. Yeah, like you have a
Yeah.
whole team around you that I can imagine is key
Yeah.
for
Yes.
your success and for still being in the game, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
fact, to further elaborate on your original question, because I mean, I kind of got off on the medical side of things, but as far as like maintaining a, body work, people, I have a really good massage therapist here. I have at least one chiropractor in this area. And then being with Proven this year with Batuk and Proven, Will Kearney, Tia and Shane, that whole gang, they have a bunch of bodywork people with them. So I was paying attention to those kinds of things. And then over the years as well, I've worked with Arasti and learned so much from Arasti. They have been so gracious to volunteer their time every single year for the CrossFit Games. And I got introduced to them really early on because you just naturally have tweaks and injuries, and you find out like these guys are magical in a sense. And so you
Okay.
take what you learn there, and then you're able to apply that in your own life with lacrosse balls or whatever. And I still have like a open relationship and dialogue. I can call Jason and many of the other guys whenever I need to, if I have a question about something. Like when I strained my calf in the middle of the semi this year, which almost took me out of the games. It took me out of that one event actually. And I was able to call Rosti, and it's like, okay, what do we do? What can I do? And they kind of walked me through it. And I was able to finish the other 3 or 4 events with a strain, with a torn soleus lower calf muscle.
Yeah.
But it was so helpful to have those guys to reach out to.
I see.
And,
Super interesting. So
yeah.
you're talking about games this year. We just finished games
Yep.
1 month
Yep.
ago.
Yeah.
So how's your balance about these 9th CrossFit Games for you?
Yeah.
You took second place,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
awesome. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
I think if it is not because of your injury in your hamstring, you should have taken a first. But let's talk about that. How was
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
year for you?
Yeah. So this year, yeah, I mean, I went into it. I hit my lifts, all my lifts, and won the first event by like 25 pounds, which was crazy because I kind of compromised the next event because it was like immediate after that. And I didn't really need to win by 25 pounds. I could have stopped at 205, and I hit 165 in the snatch and then 210 in the clean and jerk, which I was thrilled to get those lifts. They weren't PRs, but they were close.
Yeah.
And so, but I worked right up until the very end, and then all of a sudden it's like we have 1 minute to transition. I had to change my shoes, get up to the starting line. I was still pretty spent from hitting 210 on that clean and jerk. And so that kind of set me back a little bit in that next event. But yeah, I was in the lead all the way up until I tore my hamstring, and ended up the next 2 events I had to do the 5K basically sideways because I couldn't run with that
I
hamstring.
heard that. I
Yeah,
heard that.
it
It
was
is crazy.
yeah.
It took like 40 something
It
minutes
was 40
to.
minutes. Yeah. And I felt so bad. Like they're waiting for me. Everybody else was done in 30 minutes or less. And I'm like 10 minutes. I'm still out there, but they were CrossFit HQ, everybody, the announcer, Kiki, they were just so gracious waiting for me for 10 minutes. And then what was really cool is that I went, you had to run through the campground. Like everybody was like there cheering me on all the way to the end, giving me high fives. And I was doing the best I could to get high fives to everybody, but I was pretty much in pain, kind of battling that tightness in my hamstring.
I
And
can imagine.
but it was a great memory for me and hopefully for them, as bad as I felt for making people wait. But it was just CrossFit, being so gracious, and just allowing us to, and I told people as I'm running, it's like, you never quit. Cause I had to
Yeah.
finish that. Like Dave said, like Castro was saying, you got to finish this workout or you don't go on. And so and I asked Batuk, I said, are you sure I have to finish this? And he goes, so he went and double checked, and yeah, you got to finish it. So, but it's like, that's our mentality. We never quit, like no matter what. And we just have to keep going. So I had to do it because I wanted to finish, because I knew that the final was going to be strong for me. And so
you won the final event.
What's that?
You won the final event.
Yeah, the final event.
Right?
Well, that was kind of my jam. So but I struggled through that 5K, and I went to the chiropractor that night. I had some it was like shockwave therapy on my hamstring. And then he did my knees also. But it was still hurting pretty bad the next morning through all those machine events and the double unders, especially. But I got through that and then made it to the final, which I knew I needed to do. And I knew that was going to be a strong event for me. And so I rocked that and came away with, got back because I had dropped a third after those next two events. And then that got me back into solid second. So got to be happy.
Okay, Dave, we already talked about Batuke, that you have been working with him in the past games, and you work together both. And let us know how important it was for you to have Batu in your corner, working and pushing together.
Yeah. No, it was awesome to have Batuk. The interesting thing is he knew who I was when I was at Invictus one year. He remembers getting a picture with me. And I had not remembered that specifically till I walk into Proven, like in the CrossFit East Nashville, because Tia and Shane said I could come train with them. I ran into them at a New Year's Eve event. And so we were talking at that event, and they said, yeah, come on down and train. I was really nervous about going in there. But I walk in there and I meet Batuk, and he tells me and it's like, I knew that I knew him from somewhere.
Yeah.
And when he told me the story, and then he shows me the picture the next time, it all came back to me. It's like, who would have thought, 4 years or 5 years later, I walk into this gym and there's Batuk at that gym, So it was just kind of meant to be, and just an incredible support I had. And I even asked him, it was just the day before, I think, the games started. It's like, man, I went to Tia. It's like, do you have any coaches? And we were thinking Will Kearney was coming from Australia, but we weren't sure because he'd been working with me with the programming. And then Batuk was but he was in Australia. So Batuk was kind of helping me oversee the programming. So he was invaluable getting me through that. And then he was in my corner for almost all of my events. And it was just it was huge. It was huge. So super appreciative of that, man, because he knows his stuff, and he was dialed in. He was totally focused. He was there for my events, and I could look at him in the crowd and kind of see. I wanted to know if I needed to do the next clean and jerk and snatch, and we couldn't really get our signals down, so I just kept going for it. And anyway, so it was a thrill to win that event and have Batuk there in my corner the whole time. So it was great.
So you're following the Proven program
right
now.
Right? Yeah.
But you train alone. You train at home,
actually,
you go to a gym or
what I try. Well, say I got my gym here.
Yeah.
And this is the inside gym for the winter, and then I got my outside gym in the garage. Okay. Right. And so Proven CrossFit East Nashville is about 45 minutes away. So it's really not that bad. So if I have a day off and on weekends, I can get down there, do my training. I get down there, 10 or 11 or 12, get my training in for 2 hours. So I'm not actually training alone. And that for me, I really needed that this year. I needed that encouragement from Tia. She'd been amazing. She is so focused and so positive and so dialed into what you're doing and where you're at and just kind of observing and just having them.
Yes, having Tia, Shane, Batu, all of them around you.
Andrea Nisler, Taylor, let's see, the whole team there was just amazing to have them around. Will Morad, all those guys. So it's just fun to
Sydney Wells and Brooke Wells and
Brooke Wells, Sydney. Yep. Yep. All them. Yep. So
important, so
yeah.
important.
And
So
Nick's always there,
yeah,
ready to help, and then Dwight as well. So yeah, it's been it was a real blessing to have those guys to
yeah,
train
yeah.
around. Yep.
So Dave, over the years, how do you see the evolution of sports? I know you have been there for a while, and we too, and we
Yep. Yep.
saw the evolution of it.
Yeah.
Now there are the games right now are totally different to the one that we saw like 6 years back, 7 years back, 10 years back or so.
Yep.
Um, how do you see that evolution with last year we had some new programmers for
Yep.
the game.
Yep.
Now,
Hmm.
so how do you see
Yeah.
that evolution during the years?
I think that I think when they added the 65 plus, I think they felt like they had to scale it, and they might have, I think, just from my perspective, but I understand they had to do it. But I think they scale a little bit too much. Like this year, especially, they took away the handstand walk in the beginning of that workout.
Mhm.
None of us, only two of us got to the handstand walk at the end. And we really couldn't, by that time, pretty much the clock had run out. We couldn't really perform our handstand walks. That would have been a huge separator and I think when you program something and you have it a certain way, there's a reason why you have handstand walks in the beginning and at the end. It's not random. It's not just by chance. It's
Mhm.
intentional. When they remove that, they remove that element and the intention of that workout. There may be people that disagree with that, but I think that you know, that's my sense that when you change that, just because you're not asking the question anymore, what can the fittest do? You're asking what can they and cannot do, rather than like, how can we get the fittest? And obviously the way to get the fittest and to have the fittest on earth in that event, you have to have handstand walks in the beginning and at the end. But because of the abilities of most of the guys, probably half the guys maybe don't have their handstand walk. A lot of us guys do. So I think it would have been fair. You could really like cut it in half, like have 20 foot of handstand walk in the beginning, 20 foot at the end, and even cut down the reps so that we could get to the handstand walks at the end. So, but hey, they just do such a great job. It's hard to program everything just right with all these different age groups and all these different abilities. So, but as far as the evolution of the programming is concerned, if you look at what I look at what I did as a 55-year-old, and I was probably ahead skill wise, and we didn't have the skill back then. They didn't put the skill in until I turned 60. And then that year, for 3 years, they put good skill in. Like remember, they had the obstacle course, which is high
Yeah.
skill, high balance
Yeah.
coordination, stuff that they kind of got away from. They had that in the first 2 years in Madison, 17 and 18, which I thought was great because it allowed us to have that agility, accuracy, balance, and coordination in there that often gets overlooked. Like especially this year, there wasn't a whole lot of that. It was almost mostly endurance because I was analyzing that. But I think as far as the evolution, if you look at what the 55 plus are doing right now, it's incredible how much we've progressed with their programming. And now even the 60 plus, you look at some of the guys in the 60 plus and what all the stuff, the high skill work that they're doing, it's pretty amazing. And I think I'm bummed that it's going to be at the 65 level, but it may take another year or 2 years or 3 years before it gets there. By that time, I'll have aged out. I really wanted it this year. I wanted to have ring muscle ups in there. I wanted to have pegboards again, stuff like that. Not everything that I'm just good at, but everything. The more comprehensive the programming, the more comprehensive and accurate the test of fitness.
Yeah.
And so I
But
think we are getting there.
on the other side, they're giving us some new movements like the fails to wall,
Yeah.
just to
Wall
wall has a
facing
push
handstand.
up, and
Yep.
the crossovers and
Yep.
all the things that
Yeah.
there's always new things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always new things appearing that maybe for some years it was pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't want to say pretty much the same. Oh, there's always new things, but I can see the last 2 or 3 years there are
Yeah.
tons of new movements.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is
Particularly for the
evolving.
individuals. They did it a little bit. Boz explored that last year more so in the 65 plus. And that was, I actually got to help test those workouts last year because I wasn't at the
Oh,
games. So, so that was an awesome experience for me. And then being able to get to test those workouts. The bummer was I didn't get to compete that year because there was a lot of new movements that kind of came natural to me. Plus they had the ring muscle ups in there as well. So I think they kind of maybe overreached that year and then kind of backed off from that this year is my thoughts, but I don't know for sure what their whole thinking was on that. So, but yeah, so like the new movement that they had, the pullovers, like
yeah.
I came home to my gym as soon as I spent a week recovering. It's like, I want to see if I can do that. And I tried it for the first time and my form's not perfect yet, but I was able to get that, the first time I tried it. So it's like, man, I would have loved to have had something like that in there. And so I actually, so I spent the next 4 days or so visualizing it. And then I got at it again. And so, I'll be posting that video in a week or so, or a couple of days anyway, because I made a huge amount of progress from the first time to the second time, just visualizing that movement. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sorry.
I'm going with it. Yeah, go ahead, Nico. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I have just one more question before closing this pretty awesome conversation, Dave.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about the master community in the CrossFit Games and the importance that CrossFit is giving us as a master athlete? And we know that there were a lot of comments about the broadcast of the CrossFit Game for the master athletes. And what's your opinion about this?
Yeah. I mean, I can't lie and say I'm not disappointed. It's disappointing because when we first came on the scene, like they had in 2016 and last year in California, and the first year I think it was the first year they brought on the teens. It was really good coverage that year, the next year, and then it kind of tailed off a little bit after that. But it's just really it's just going downhill, and we can't really, I can't sit here without all the information and be critical at all. You know what I mean? I have to remind myself we're super blessed that they even allowed Masters to be part of the CrossFit Games in the first place. Whether we get coverage or not, that's a huge plus. But it's like it's not why we do it. But it's still disappointing. But the reality of it is like you don't know what all goes into that, and hopefully that will be more so in the future, because I think it is important. I think we do what we represent, and one of the reasons why I keep doing this is because I do want to inspire people to be in better shape, and I want to be able to present to the world what is possible even as we age. Because I mean, you can't get away from the fact that the number one killer in America or in the world actually is heart disease. You got heart disease, you got cancer, you got high blood pressure, you got diabetes, the list goes on and on for all these chronic diseases. And like being in shape is the best defense against that. Being in shape is the best tool for longevity and raising that quality of life for as long as possible. And so I just think for that reason alone, getting the Masters coverage out there is just critical to a dying world, really. And I think, because I think about what it's doing to my body and competing, because I could stay in shape and still be doing well without competing. But I feel like by competing, I'm able to reach more people, like even like getting the opportunity to do the podcast.
Yes. You can be able to share the world what you can do.
Yeah. And even if I can just save one person from, just one more person from sitting on the couch to going for it, and getting fit and fighting that chronic disease so they can be there for their grandkids. They can be there for their kids, and I just feel like it's worth it. And I feel like that reason alone, I think if we can get the message out more so, get more coverage of the Masters and what we can do, I think the better.
And
That's awesome. That's
you're
awesome.
certainly an inspiration to all of us, and that is why we were so interested in having you in our shows, because we are all going to the Masters division,
Yeah.
so there's no way to go back.
Yeah,
We
it's
are all
gonna
going
happen.
there.
Yeah.
So it is
Yeah.
so important to have people like you that inspire us to continue going on and to kind of tell us, hey, you can still be in shape when you grow up. So
Yeah.
and it's so important.
Yeah.
So I think we're all about to close. We don't want to take more
That's
time
okay. I love talking
you.
about this. Yeah.
You have been an excellent person to have here in our show. So we really appreciate your time. I don't know, Nico, if you would like to add something
No,
to close with something.
also want to thank Dave you this time and this conversation. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's good to be a part of it. I appreciate the honor. I'm honored to be a part of it.
You have
And,
friends
As
whenever you want to come down here to Argentina. You have friends here to
that'd be great.
to go
That'd
and
be
show
great. Yeah.
you our gyms and to train with us and
Yeah.
whatever you want to do here.
it's
So
a myth.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great, man. That'd be great. And anybody out there listening, just want to inspire you, through all of this, that you can do it. Like if you're on the fence thinking about, man, I need to get in shape, even at whatever age you're at, whatever fitness level you're at right now, you can bring it back and you can get there. So
That's right.
word of encouragement to everybody out there, so.
yeah, thank you very much for being here in Box TV. We have the honor of having you here in Box TV. This is our program that we are doing with all our heart during the last year. So we appreciate a lot having people like you. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much for what you guys are doing too. It's a great mission. Yeah. So
thank you.
thanks
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Yeah. Good to see you.
Good to
All
see
right.
you. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay.
Have a
We'll
good
see you
day.
now. Yeah. You too. Take care. Keep in touch.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.